Hey, it's AJ here, and welcome to maybe a first reaction. I don't know how to sort of make this kind of video, but I found a video by Sleepy, and he made a video named Legends Who Need Buffs and Nerfs. And I'm just the guy who really likes ideas of mechanics, even though I'm not a great player. I've done sort of different mechanical topic conversations from League of Legends and Dota 2 and comparing both, but here I'm maybe doing a first for Apex Legends. So I'll sort of made a long comment from his video, but there's a few more things that I wanted to talk about in his video, and some reaction. So let's get to it.
I feel like in season 10, there's not really like that one legend that stands out super like crazy that could like, oh, this legend could like instantly 1v3. You know, it used to be Wraith when she had like her Q was a lot better and her hitbox was a lot smaller. Portal was probably farther too. Maybe that's when she was in her prime. Octane probably isn't in his prime as well, just because his stim takes 20% of his health. Really not that bad though. I feel like Octane's probably the best legend right now in the game. But I'm gonna talk about some changes I feel like, and let me know. This is when I need you guys to come in the comment section down below and give me ideas, some changes, your opinions on all this. Like I said, this is just opinion based, but let's get this started. So first and foremost, the legend that probably needs the most help is Pathfinder. Now you're probably thinking, why Pathfinder? Bro, his passive, oh my.
So yeah, you can go watch the video by itself, so I'll just skip a little bit ahead, but let's get into Pathfinder. One thing that I sort of comment about Pathfinder, because I was also thinking the same way, where it's like, it's kind of weird that his passive is basically many other people's passive, and they have even more, right? So just going by his themes of being someone who is able to create zip lines, one way is to allow him to move faster on those zip lines, since he is that legend who creates the zip lines for his teammates. So just having more mobility on those zip lines to zip through that sort of long stretch faster than other people might give him like the advantage and sort of differentiate him from other legends. Much bigger buff or differentiation is to allow him to make those sort of zip balloon lines. So if you maybe just place it straight up or point straight up, then instead of sort of trying to lock onto a mountain, it instead sort of turns into a balloon, but not as tall as other structures obviously, but a more shorter version. This is one that just literally came up right now that I'm recording, since we're just trying to play around with the idea of making zip lines, right? I don't think it's something where, oh, he would hack the sort of beacons faster than others, since Crypto is the one that does the hacking fastest and safest of all of them. And it is a little bit sad to sort of see how similar all of the legends are with this sort of beacon. For example, that the animation is basically the same between Pathfinder, and then there is Bloodhound, and then now with Valkyrie, and maybe the new legend that's coming up, since he is also somewhat of a scouting character, might be able to scan beacons as well and see the map zones ahead of time. Which I mentioned Valkyrie because it feels like she is the one character that doesn't really fit along the lines of scanning beacons. I'm also a little bit not sure on Bloodhound when it comes to the narrative theme for these characters. Bloodhound, simply because even though he's a scouting character, how is he able to hack it in the first place, right? Yes, in the mechanical standpoint, he's scouting, so he should be able to have this skill set to then see the zone, right? But then narratively, it doesn't make sense. So I'm sort of applying sort of narrative reasoning into sort of this conversation, which sometimes you just gotta throw the narrative out and just stick to the mechanics, since it's still a game after all. But on Valk's side, she got already a pretty strong passive that if you balloon zipline, you'll be able to get this scan to be able to spot the enemies on the ground, or when you first jump off from the ship, you'll be able to sort of see people from a far distance. That's already strong, so why should she be able to sort of scan beacons as well? And it's more like, since she's a pilot, it makes sense for her to be able to scan the skies and those who are like in the area, but then to scan a beacon itself, that to me is sort of a separation between what is scanning in the sky like a pilot versus just scanning a radar thing, right, to see the zone ahead of time. And this is sort of one of the things where it's like, if quote unquote, I'm not sure, Valk is sort of too strong, let's say, then one of those things to be removed. Maybe it's sort of a feature where it's like, oh, we need someone who can scan beacons, and Valk isn't one of them, so we have to sort of pick someone else if we want to sort of have a well-rounded team. But with Valk, it's almost like she can do everything, and a lot of people were a little bit worried that she might be overloaded. But at this point, it seems that she's not as OP as Horizon, so most likely nothing will happen. And understandably, if she does need nerfing, then they'll have to nerf the thing that's strong, not nerfing different aspects that wouldn't really change the legend all that much. But let's just sort of skip a little bit ahead to sort of the next legend that he wanted to talk about. But yeah, for Pathfinder, I think just moving and ziplining faster than other legends, since he's sort of a special character, and then being able to sort of create those balloon zip lines to fly but not as high, would sound like more interesting, I think.
And we agreed, like, yeah, like, you know, Pathfinder does need the Crypto could scan, Valkyrie could scan beacons now, Bloodhound could scan beacons now. Why are you gonna have a Pathfinder, you know, for like the movement and stuff like that? And two, much more than just grappling. So the next person on the list right here is Watson. Watson needs a buff. I don't care what Daniels played Z says.
So the next person is Watson, and there was like a post a while back for how someone tested like the regeneration of Octane, and it seems that he's able to regen his HP faster than what is written, and I believe it was 1.5 HP per second. And for Watson to recharge her shields, I mean, simply just recharging just as fast as Octane, man. It's like, let her be Octane but for shields, and that's just what they should try to do in the first place, I think, and then just go from there. There's a few things when placing fences, and it's something that I have an issue with Rampart as well, so I'm just gonna put these two into one, where compared to Caustic, you basically just throw your gas, and it's like, for someone who has to place objects on the ground, he's the easiest of them all. And then maybe Rampart comes in second, and then Watson is the hardest, since you have to place 2 and 2 together. And I wish to show like maybe some animation on the fire range, but basically for both Rampart, and I'll start with Rampart since it might be easier to understand, but basically instead of having to press your tactical to pull out the amp cover, and then you have to click on the ground a second time to then place it down. To me, it just feels like if you needed to place it down, you press one button and it will place down at the location in front of you, and that's that. Like, no need to press 2 buttons. And the biggest thing for her is not the speed of how fast the amp goes up, it's just the speed of placing it down. And so there's 2 things, right? It's the placing on the ground, and then the amount of time the amp comes up. People are worried that the amount of time that it comes up will be too fast. I'm not saying to change that speed, I'm saying the amount of time it takes for you to place it down, and that's sort of where you are sort of vulnerable because you don't have your gun up. You can easily be shot because you're peeking the corner to try to place the amp in the first place. So I think the animation and sort of the button coordination to place the amp should be changed to be a little bit more to be a little bit faster. And again, this might be a little bit from inexperience, because as much as I try and sort of practice a little bit, it just feels very sluggish to try to just place down one at a time. And then for some reason, when I see like better players, they're just going left and right, and they just set up like a fortress very quickly, and it's just simply pressing 2 buttons, and I just don't know like what's what. So it's a mixture of like, okay, I need to learn like with the current state how to get faster, but I feel like it could be improved by just making it faster from the get-go. Okay, and then Sheila, I mean, I think people just want her to be able to just move almost 360 degrees in the first place. I mean, you're already a sitting duck on the turret, so why not just be able to rotate around, you know? And in the end, let's go a little bit crazy. This is like maybe going OP territory, but this is just a little bit too crazy, that if she already has an amp cover, maybe having a shield in front of the turret so you at least have some protection on yourself. And of course, it's not gonna do any amp increased damage. You need the amp cover for that stuff. I'm just saying a shield for yourself when you're on the turret. But back to the amp covers, another thing that might be like a balancing feature for her is that you have to sort of replace if your amp is destroyed, the top part, I mean. Yeah, if it's completely destroyed, then of course place a new one. But then if it's partially destroyed, I feel like you should be able to click a certain button to be able to reactivate or repair that amp that's already placed down instead of having to create a new one. And of course it will take a charge from your tactical. And so at the very least, if they destroy the top part, you press a button and then it will repair itself back to full HP and then recharge again. But of course, maybe during that time, it's vulnerable once more to be able to be destroyed. So you have to sort of maybe plan like when is the good time to sort of repair this amp cover. Maybe it's like a mini animation to that, like during this time that you're repairing, you yourself are also slightly stunned during that time as well. And it's just a mixture of like pros and cons here. I see like a bigger con where you having to place down new ones, which sort of takes a long time, and then it can be destroyed once again, versus sort of repairing the current ones that are half sort of destroyed, the top part is destroyed, and then you can repair those ones that are already on the ground placed. And I think sort of the second one is maybe a more interesting direction to sort of buff her, but not too much of making it overpower, such as the amp covers coming up and activating much faster. I don't think that is sort of needed, and that would definitely sort of make her too powerful in that scenario.
And so many times where I've been opting push, no audio. Where are you coming from? Where? Who was over there? You know, it's just like, how? Like, what? Rev should have a limit on how far he can go with his totem.
So I'm gonna sort of skip the Revenant Octane thing since it's a little bit of a touchy subject, and honestly, yeah, as he said already, the totem push maybe should have the limited range from the beginning, or the further you go away, the duration on your totem also decrease even faster. So it's more like you want to place it within the building, then you run inside that very same building as well. But then if you're like going to the second building, like you imagine you're in one of those cities, right? And then you're going to the second building next to it. Maybe that's already reducing or making the timer count down slightly faster. Or maybe it starts to count down at the third building wise. Maybe buildings are not a great analogy. Let's talk in meters since we know. So let's say like if you cross like 100 meters, then it starts to count down much faster. And so you would most likely have your sort of zombie mode turn off or run out much quicker, in which case you simply die. And yeah, that you'll just get punished for it. So you just gotta like place it a little bit close. This is similar to Rampart's turret as well, where like some people can shoot at 200 meters, but let's say there's a limit. Like for me, anything like above 100 to 150 meters, the turret starts to become a little bit too inaccurate. Like the shots are just not landing, the spread is a little bit too much. And so it's like, okay, my personal skill set, skill level, and ability to shoot accurately is around 100 meters, right? So it's like, I try to measure and say, okay, I'm like less than 100 meters, this is perfect. And then people just melt, right? And then if it's too far, then okay, it's too far. I won't hit anything. Maybe I'll just make them scared, right? That there's a rampart shooting from like across the ravine or something. And of course, I'm not gonna kill them, but it certainly sort of like gives them a little bit of pressure. Honestly, those guys that shoot back at me with their Spitfires and stuff are more accurate, because it's like, oh, Spitfire with 3 times scope or 224, and then it's like a steady hand, right? And then they're just breaking the amp, and then I'm on my turret, can't move, and then I just get shot more and take more damage than they do, or even a sniper. But back to Revenant, yeah, just like maybe 50 to 100 meter limit. When you start passing that, which is already a pretty long distance by itself, the countdown starts to ramp up, and then you will lose it, like not right away, but you will lose it quite quickly.
Or just not be able to take Octane jump pads. You know, simple as
Octane jump pads for not giving enough sound. Like I don't know how loud it's supposed to be. Maybe instead of the jump pad itself giving sound, it's more like you hear a jetpack sound, since the animation of when people take jump pads is almost like their boosters. If you look behind here, they still have their boosters. It's almost like it's still going off while they're jumping, especially the double jump. Maybe the double jump itself needs a louder sound to it, so you hear the boost of like, oh shit, people are jump padding at a certain direction angle here, and it's not the jump pad itself making a sudden loud sound, because I mean, it's just gonna be too far away, maybe a slightly unpractical, unrealistic. But I think having a louder sound on the double jump to warn enemies might be an interesting thing to explore, and also for the Octane team as well, of like, do not double jump because we still want to sort of have the surprise on them, because if we double jump to reach, then we'll give ourselves away. Plus, we know that since we're not gonna double jump, we cannot just place the pad super far away from the enemy that we want to push, so we have to get a little bit closer to use the jump pad and use the one jump as well. And then secondly, since they're still boosting, that might still give like a sound. Now that we have Valk, she makes a sound on her boosters, similar to that idea of like, we hear someone flying, right, and we hear a Valk flying. So just imagine Valk flying, but then something a little bit softer, and then we will sort of get the idea of like what that sound might sound like when you sort of hit the jump pad. And those two sounds might be what Apex sort of needs, and I think it's interesting to sort of explore.
That either one or the other, because I feel like that Octane Rev duo just isn't good for Apex Legends. About Valkyrie, Bangalore, one of the most perfect balanced legends in the game. Lifeline, her ult takes way too long, but I do feel like she is in a really good state right now. Lifeline's not crazy OP, but a really good solid player to have on your team.
Yeah, Lifeline is pretty cool. There's certain things about her ulti that's like, it does give upgrades, and playing it for quite a while, yeah, it does give upgrades quite nicely. It's still a little bit random, but at least 99% of the time the upgrades is something that someone in the team can use. But it's a little bit sad that, and maybe I'm undervaluing the knockdown shield, because technically you don't want to get knocked down in the first place. There's a couple of posts on Reddit before the buff that, oh, maybe when you're being revived, you get a different animation where you get to use your knockdown to defend yourself instead of the sort of old Lifeline shield instead. So it's like, it makes sense to have like a slightly better knockdown shield as well while you're trying to revive. I think that's a pretty good idea, and sort of gives the knockdown shield a little bit more purpose as well, especially if you get a upgraded knockdown shield from Lifeline's care package. But I feel like one way or another they might not do it, because it requires new animation for all the legends, and it's like, oh, we can't be bothered to work on new animations anyway, so we won't implement it in the first place. Secondarily, I feel like they could sort of add like a new crafting system within the Lifeline's care package itself. Instead of like the 3 angles like other care package, this one will have 4 angles, so it will become a square, and then the 4th side will then have its own like crafting area. So it's like, she really, even though you might not get what you need in the other 3 slots, there's a 4th slot for you to actually craft something. And who knows, it will like maybe bring back sort of the people to gather materials a little bit more as well. And it's like definitely gonna be sort of useful late game, where maybe there's no crafting areas around and you still have crafting materials, and so the Lifeline just brings down like her care package, and then you just craft what you need, and it's literally like a care package for you to craft what you need, you know. So I think it goes hand in hand with her themes of being a sort of medic and support character. And who knows if that one is only limited to create shields, batteries, and medkits, since most of the time you only get the small cells. So if you want to craft like the batteries or the medkits, then you can, right? And you maybe it's like, it's not the usual crafting shop that has all of the weekly, daily items. Here is only like medkits that you can craft. Maybe you need syringe, you can craft that. So it's also special only for Lifeline that you can craft like cells and syringe if you need to. And maybe it's like much cheaper price of like 10 crafting materials instead of the usual 20, let's say. Like, why you need syringes, I don't know, but the option is there, and it sort of makes her sort of unique and stand out outside of the normal crafting spots, you know. Lastly would be like, since you throw down the care package, and when I watch a couple of more experienced lifelines, I just sort of never see them use the care package at all, because it's like a giant beacon to tell enemies that you're here, and if the sort of supply drops, sometimes one person gets all of this loot and the other people don't benefit. So I suppose like giving a little bit of crafting material as well, let's say like 20 or 40 would like be useful. So not only you get like a place to craft like some healings of whatever you need, you get like the materials you actually need to craft it in the first place. But the downside is that you have to waste time as well. Not only you sort of send a beacon to everyone that I'm here, lifeline is here, I'm gonna spend time trying to craft something as well. So those would be the cons, right? And you have to sort of measure, is this worthwhile? Is it worth the risk, right? Maybe just 20 to just get one battery or one med kit in just one, because if you can just start crafting two, definitely OP at that point. Way too strong.
Loba needs her animation, her Q to be shorter. Someone's got to go with that. The animation.
For Loba, it does feel like when she throws her bracelet, just let her like pull out her gun again and shoot. And it's almost like you're shooting the final 2 bullets. And just imagine you throw the bracelet, you pull out your gun again, you're able to shoot and knock that person down, and then you press your tactical again, and then you're out. And then I think that's just gonna be a very cool, you know, highlight kind of like gameplay to see, of like you knock down at the perfect moment and then you're just out of there. Maybe too OP, but if she needs a buff, this is just the if, right? If she needs a buff, this might be a cool idea, and then that's that. As for her shop, it's already pretty strong. People can just take as much ammo as they need, allowing people to take 3 items instead of the 2 might be going overboard. Now we're talking about 3 times 3, since it's 3 legends, 9 items, and yeah, so it feels like the shop is already recharging quite quickly and it's already strong enough. So they might still need to like work on the tactical aspect more.
It takes a whole century, I don't know, 30 seconds, right? Why can't you do that with Loba? Or why a good state right now? She's not too crazy OP, but she's not ever like, oh, Mirage is OP, you know, like nerf Mirage if anything.
I had an interesting conversation when playing with another friend, and it was his idea that when Mirage uses ulti and it's like only in a small range with his allies, so his allies would still need to be close to him and might still need to like stick with him in that sort of close radius, where since he's able to just create illusions through his sort of suit, he might as well be able to create illusions of his teammates as well. Like, why not? And then so instead of having like, I don't know how many illusions Mirage actually gets in his ultimate, but let's say half or 1/4 of it, or let's just say maybe even 2, you know, like bare minimum you get like 1, right, illusion for 2 of your teammates. So even when the enemy are trying to shoot your teammates as like you as Mirage, you can ulti and then create 2 illusions of your teammates, and then hypothetically and hopefully your enemies would get confused of like, now the lifeline that I'm shooting, there's 2 of them and I don't know who is who, and they might get like a mini invisibility just like him as well. Might be too strong, but then again it has to be like in a very small radius because he cannot project like illusions from a far distance. So that's sort of how it sort of works together with the narrative and like mechanics wise.
He needs like a buff maybe to like, maybe he could stand beacons, you know, like maybe he could see banners or useless. Like if you shoot his drone, he's useless. What is he gonna do? EMP you with what? His hand? Like what? Like
this I'll save it for the next legend, because like with the next legend, with having small drones and one of his tacticals is basically to just follow enemies, it just feels like this is what Crypto wants to be. Just throw his drone so that it can just follow people and you don't have to like be the one just sitting down trying to control a drone and you're not shooting or helping your teammates at all. But going back to the main topic and actual sort of ideas here, is one thing is like when I play Crypto and try him out, because it's just like, oh, let's play something that's outside of like the majority of legends that we see, you know, our Bangalore, Skibbies, Raids, etc. And when I have the rare Crypto allies, is that they place their drones and it's literally scans nobody because they're not in range and I can see nobody. It's like you might as well have a Bloodhound scanning once every how many seconds it is, and that's more useful because the scan actually hits people and we can see them, while the Crypto drone sees nothing and it cannot see through walls. And I'm not saying it should see through walls, but I'm just saying the sight vision range should increase. I mean, we already have Valk that can see like half the map and see like scan people for like a 360 degree view. So just at least let Crypto drone like have some telephoto lens to be able to scan people from a much farther distance, so that you can place the drone at a safer location before it gets shot like within a second that it currently is, you know? And people say, oh, put it in the corner and it's harder to find. People can find that shit, you know? People might ignore it because they're trying to fight, but in any scenario, it's like, oh, there's a Crypto drone, shoot it down. Oh, it's in the corner, shoot it down. It's like, how's it putting in the corner help anybody, really? It just needs a longer scan area, and that's already gonna be a big help. Second thing, I'm like reminded by StarCraft, that Protoss unit that flies, that can sort of see invisible units, and that thing is also invisible. And well, let's just take the Overlords from the Zerg race. Basically, people would just have this Overlord that flies around, and then they would like shift move the character, and it was like move back and forth or go in a circle to be able to give vision. Have Crypto the ability to just let the drone sort of fly in a certain area, and it just sort of flies on its own automatically. So you set the waypoint and it can sort of fly back and forth if you want. And sort of the default baseline maybe is that you press your tactical, and then through the mini map itself you tell it where to go. So I want it to go here, and then we would sort of set and design like, oh, what's the good height, maybe 50 meters, or like what is the radius of his ulti, what distance that is would be like the height that the drone flies, so that when you actually press your ulti as the drone flies through, it will still hit the ground, right? Or maybe half of it, who knows. It's something that will need testing, obviously, but the basic idea is the idea where Crypto needs to, like, they say, oh, while you're sliding down a hill you can press your tactical and fly your drone while you're moving with your teammates. It's like, that sounds dumb, okay? Just have you open your map, tell your tactical drone, fly to this spot, and we know how high you are, that I can be able to hit everyone in that spot, and then I run with my team as that spot is being EMP, and I'm like holding my gun and running in to shoot, and that's it. And that might be OP. Well, he's already weak, so you might as well buff him. And then allow the drone to fly back and forth in a waypoint position, and people who fly through that area, it's like, oh, there you are. And then if people run in and say, oh, there's a Crypto drone flying around, well, you expose your position as well, and that's the con. So there's pros and cons. It's buff in one way, but there's a con on the other way. So you need to sort of know where to place that drone. And then if you like run too far, then the drone will instantly sort of get destroyed, let's say, and then you cannot use it anymore. As for the drone that get destroyed and you're sort of useless for a very long time, I feel like losing like materials within your backpack might be like a good sacrifice. That yes, we destroyed the Crypto drone, but now let's say, for example, he needs to use his shield battery to recharge, like quote unquote recharge. So you're losing a shield battery, and that's sort of a big resource already, because you cannot recharge your own shield anymore. You're trying to recharge for your drone, let's say. So you get your drone back faster, but on the other hand, you lose a shield battery, which might be like a big sacrifice when it comes to sort of higher level gameplay. And you might not be useless waiting for your drone to come back, but again, that's like a big sacrifice to get it back right away if you really need it. And at least there's a way for Crypto himself to actually get it back and still be useful. Maybe it needs to be something much bigger, like Phoenix Kit, for example. Like, it's one full Phoenix Kit just to get the drone back. At least some way where you lose like valuable assets in your backpack just to get your Crypto drone back, you know. And I'm not sure if like ulti accelerator might do the thing, even though you already have your ulti up. And yeah, it's one or the other. Just you gotta like use something to get it back, at least. lose some valuable item in your backpack.
So I want Crypto to get like a new like ability where he doesn't have to use his drone in this ability. I feel like that would be really huge. Fuse seems fine, not an OP character. Maybe his ult could go down a little bit faster or just hurt more. I don't know, something.
Fuse is one character where his ulti does go down a little bit faster, and well, it just seems like, as everybody literally says, you're inside the donut and then you can't see through the fire and the enemies are safe within that ring anyways. So it just feels like maybe it should go back to like the caustic gas, but it works in a different way where people in the center of the circle does take a little bit of damage, but not as much as the ring around them, right? Because you're literally still in the center of a ring of fire. Maybe that should still do damage to you. Who knows? But very little damage. Similar to like a caustic trap or something, or worse, just some kind of damage, right? And so if you want to not take damage, then you gotta run out of the ring, which then you will take more damage. So they don't need to create something to incentivize people to have to run out of that ring because they're in danger while being in that ring. I think the designers were trying to think that Fuse has a lot of grenades, so whoever is trapped inside that ring would then be bombarded by grenades from Fuse, which, I mean, I've never really seen it ever happen, ever, and couldn't even replicate it myself when I sort of hypothetically think, oh, this is what the designer wants, and I can't even do it myself. It just doesn't work. So I feel like they should do something else with that ulti. I mean, might as well just make the ring smaller and just one circle of fire, and then that circle is just much smaller, and it's like, okay, you do the damage there, but the circle is really small and you gotta be accurate. It's like, okay, cool, at least you do damage. Might as well.
Something to think about. Caustic made Caustic's gas stronger, but a longer cooldown for his barrels. Maybe the barrels have like, you know, health too as well, and his ult takes longer too as well. I feel like that would be a good way to like balance.
It sees that I don't know if this is true or not, but just let caustic gas just stack on top of each other. So if you put 2 gas traps on top, then it adds the damage together, like it gets more toxic. So the more gases you have within the room, and sometimes people put 3 in one small room at the ground floor, so those 3 would like add each other. I'm not saying additively, but like multiple, in the sense of like, I think it does, let's say 5 damage right now per second. I'm not saying you put a second gas trap and it will suddenly do 10. I'm more like saying, since there's 2, it adds like half the value on top, so it'll be 2.5. So from 5 it becomes 7.5. If you add a third, it becomes 10, right? And then that's just how, where when you get to set up as caustic, you know your gas will really do a lot of damage. But if there's only 1, then sure, it won't do a lot of damage. And we can sort of work around where if you do add more gases in the area within like a certain radius, then the gas will spread out even further at a wider radius than that as well. As for the ulti, it can sort of buff that area effect even more, where it just spreads out like as a caustic gas would. And I think sort of that idea sort of fits at least with the theme of gas spreading, you know? The more gas you can put in a certain area, it sort of adds damage with itself, and then as it's together, it spreads out even further outside of its sort of current zone. And with his ulti like combining with the traps itself, then that might like give that last sort of extra boost in damage. So you have 3 of them together, and maybe the 3 is the max that you can do, where it goes up to 10, and then if you throw your ulti inside that sort of area once more, it's like, oh, another plus like 3 instead of a 2.5 to make it like the most deadliest area you can have there. Then now we're talking about old caustic damage coming back, where you have to do this big combo. And with like defensive characters that need to set up, I think this sort of makes sense. That yeah, caustic needs time to set up to get his ultimate damage running and to be at his peak sort of damage, instead of just throwing 1 and it's already strong. We don't want to go back to the old caustic.
Him, because right now he's really bad, but at the same time, for those caustic players, it's not kind of fair. Horizon, oh my Lanta, bring back old Horizon, please. I was spoiled last season. Let me tell you, I used to play Horizon back in season, what was it, season 8, season 7?
So for Horizon, people were talking about the strafe, which I agree, but I have always felt weird of how high this tactical could go. It just scales buildings. Beforehand and before Valk as well, the only thing you can use to scale buildings is like Octane's ulti and Pathfinder's ulti. And now we have a tactical, not an ultimate that can scale buildings. So that just didn't make sense to me. And I just thought this reduced the height, and then now it's just like not as good as a full ultimate. But instead they nerfed the stronger point of the tactical, which is the strafing side. So yeah, I really sort of am not sure for Horizon. I'm just sort of sharing that it didn't make sense to me since the very beginning of how high she could go in the first place. But now that Revenant could climb just as high, which is pretty cool. Maybe I'm wrong that her tactical height shouldn't be reduced, but other things should be reduced to give back, like maybe the speed to lift. The speed lift increase, but then the strafing may be too much, right? Since you can just dodge, and that's certainly too powerful. But when I came back to play her, yeah, the lift definitely felt much slower, and could sort of use like some tweaking to bring some power back to her. But yeah, I don't have much to say for Horizon.
I had the time of my life playing this character, and now she's just not the same no more. Not the same. She needs to go not dependable on the team, like so your other teammates can't see the scans, only the Bloodhound could see who he scans or who they scanned. Rampart, be able to have walls go up faster. I don't know. Okay, the thing about Rampart is
we kind of already talked about Rampart, so I'm just gonna skip.
Weird to buff Rampart. I feel like if you make her walls shoot up, like have no delay, then she's instantly become some Gs, LMGs, assault rifles, shotguns, stuff like that. Who knows? We'll see. Love you all. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.
Yeah, fuck. This is like a 40-minute video just literally talking about every legend in detail. Well, I just have fun like thinking of like mechanics, you know? At the end of the day, for me, it's not like, oh, this is the idea to fix things. No, these are ideas I wish to test. If I'm like at Respawn, it's not telling them to implement this. It's just, let me just test this because I'm interested to see. And if it's bad, I'll fully admit it, you know? And it's just, I'm already honored to be able to test such ideas already, you know? I don't need any of these ideas to be in the game, you know? Because at the end of the day, anyone can sort of speculate, and with as much experience as one might have, can speculate ideas, but you need to test them first. And for me, I just would love to just test ideas, you know? But that's about it. I might come again with other weird ideas or weirder ideas just for like talking about narrative, right? This is the story, and then what would the ability be? And they will go outside of the realms of mechanics and balancing. But that will be for another time. With that said, like, hell, if you like reach to the end here, salute to you. And I will have like another talk for the crypto thing and the new legend later. With that said, I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.